Yeah, I got to tweet this out. I forgot.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm getting a call from Billings, Montana. Is that the University of?
I would guess it's spam. Just a guess, Perk. Unless you have relatives in Billings, Montana.
That's right. That's right. Asking to come down for Christmas.
That's the great thing about spam. I hear of little towns and across America I've never heard of before.
Exactly.
I'd like to think there's some life-changing moment out there, but I can't afford to answer the call and get hooked up to India or something.
Right. Well, I always think, let's see, did I call a scout there? Or did I call anybody in Billings, Montana? Nope, probably not. So, right, that's it. That's pretty much where it is for me.
Yeah.
All right, let me get on the chat here and turn down the volume.
All right, I just tweeted it out.
All right.
My service to social media.
All right. Look at this, baby. Roger already in the chat, baby. I like it. All right. Let's see. Am I ready? Let's see. Yeah, I'm ready. The Miami Dolphins, 9-3 through 12 games for the first time since 2001, boosting spirits even further that we might be watching something special here with these 2023 Miami Dolphins as they head into this week's game, a Monday Night Football affair against Tennessee at Hard Rock Stadium. What's up, Dolphins fans? Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I'm Chris Perkins, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist. That's Dave Hyde, your South Florida Sun Sentinel sports columnist. As a reminder, you can catch this podcast on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, your Miami Dolphins, currently the #1 seed in the AFC, but can they maintain that spot for the rest of the season? Can they get that home field advantage throughout the playoffs? And with that as the backdrop, can we use Dolphins and Super Bowl in the same sentence yet? I think if they're the #1 seed, we're going to be right in that neighborhood. Speaking of the same sentence, can we use Tyreek Hill and MVP in the same sentence? I know the quarterback usually gets that MVP award, but I'm going to ask again a few weeks later, after I've written my column, Tyreek should be the MVP. What would it take for Tyreek to get the MVP award this season? We're also going to play a game today in which we consider whether Taron Armstead should be shelved for the next couple of weeks, and we will ask what you like most about this defense. We'll wrap it up by making our fearless prediction of the week, Dolphins and Titans. There's a lot to see beneath the surface. Let's dive in. All right, Dave Hyde. So the question on the table here, can we legit use Dolphins and Super Bowl in the same sentence? You know Miami is in the #1 spot in the AFC right now. We know the Dolphins are almost unbeatable at Hard Rock Stadium, but they might have to go on the road, Dave Hyde. They will have to go on the road on New Year's Eve to play Baltimore. So are the Dolphins a legit Super Bowl contender? Can we say that at this point of the season?
Clearly. The question is, are they the prime Super Bowl contender at this point? Jacksonville just lost Trevor Lawrence, it looks like, and they lost to Cincinnati on Monday. Kansas City lost in Green Bay, and they're trending to be not the team they were last year. You thought maybe they'd pick it up in December, and yet you saw when the Dolphins play them, they didn't score in the second half. They're having trouble scoring. So who's out there? Baltimore's out there, and the Dolphins are going to – and I'm sure Baltimore's asking the same question. Is the path opening up for us? Same question the Dolphins are asking. But, yes, of course, you can use contender, you can use Super Bowl, you can use words you haven't been able to use since the early 90s with the Dolphins right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. Here's the thing. They are Super Bowl contenders. They are legit Super Bowl contenders. I've got them in my second tier of Super Bowl contenders. I've got Philly, San Francisco, and Kansas City in the top tier. Two from the NFC.
They don't have to play Philly or San Francisco, though, Perk.
I know. Listen, two from the NFC and one from the AFC. Those are my top three Super Bowl contenders. In the next class, I've got Miami, Dallas, Baltimore, and Detroit. And so I will ask you this. I'm just talking about, I'm not saying from the AFC, from the NFC, my top Super Bowl contenders. Let me ask you this, Dave Hyde, because I see similarities between Miami and Dallas when you say that neither has beaten a high-quality team. Now, each has its other issues, but from that standpoint, when you compare each team, when you ask that question of each team, Miami, are they legit? Dallas, are they legit? Does the fact that neither of them has beaten a high-quality team preclude them from being a legit Super Bowl contender?
No, because there's only a handful of teams right now you would say are Super Bowl contenders. Look, right. San Francisco is separating themselves.
Right.
They whipped up on Dallas. They whipped up on Philadelphia. Bad beatings, and so they've shown. If we're talking both, overall, they'd be the favorite right now to win the Super Bowl, right? But in the AFC, again, Kansas City isn't the team they've been, and right. Jacksonville looks like they're out of it. If Trevor Lawrence is gone, they're in big trouble. So to me, it's Kansas City, Baltimore, and the Dolphins, and that makes the January 1st matchup because you would assume, just guessing, home field's probably going to come into play for the playoffs in that, and not that Baltimore is an awful place to play like a Buffalo or New England can be, but the Dolphins want the game here. This is their weather, their field. Everything is conducive to them. So that will be a big game.
Yeah, it will be. That's going to be a huge game. And look, Baltimore, I don't trust them because they can't hold a lead in the fourth quarter, including at home. We saw that last year with the Dolphins. That to me is a worse strike against you than what you could say about Miami and Dallas, that they haven't beaten any good teams. When you can't hold a lead in the fourth quarter, including at home, Dave Hyde, I can't trust you to do anything. And I love Lamar Jackson and the season that he's having and everything about Baltimore, but Dave, if I can't trust you in the fourth quarter, I can't trust you at all. I have Kansas City as my top team and the Dolphins as my second team in the AFC.
Well, one of these teams, unless Kansas City makes a run again, and they very, very well could, they just don't have the offensive output around Mahomes that they've had. But one of these teams, either the Dolphins are going to beat a good team or Baltimore is going to hold a lead in the fourth quarter, and it comes. You just look. Both these teams have 12 good qualities and 2 bad qualities, and do you hold the bad qualities against them at this point? And I say, look, the AFC is down to 3 teams, and the Dolphins are right there, and the home field becomes huge right now.
Right. To me, that's the biggest thing right now. Before we go any further, what's up to Roger Allman in the chat? Nizzo, pretty boy, always here. What's up? Nuke 94 2001. I don't know what that number is actually, but I think that's it. Judy Williams here. Good to see you, Judy. Cat for life here. Good to see a lot of our regulars here in the chat, and glad that everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Look, Dave, let me ask you one more thing on this, just to kind of put a bow on it. What do you need to see from what can the Dolphins show you in the next couple of weeks to make you think that they are legit? Because we've seen them, run up the score on teams. We saw them against Carolina, right? They had the 14-0 deficit, so they came back on a bad team. They won a close game with a quote unquote bad team, Las Vegas 20-13. They've crushed a team 70-20. Against the non-big name teams, I've seen enough. They just have to maintain their focus, which I will give them a lot of credit for because, as you say, Cincinnati has gone down. Kansas City has gone down. Look at all the teams that have gone down. Jacksonville just went down, not because of a lack of focus, but, but what can the Dolphins show you in these next couple of weeks? We've seen versatility in their game, offense, defense. What else can they show you in these next couple of weeks?
Well, there's a few things you look for. One, and again, they're not going to answer the big question of playing a Dallas or a Baltimore, how do they do against a contending team? But to get ready for that, and they did one of them on Sunday, no turnovers, okay? That had become a issue in the preceding weeks. No turnovers again. Look, Washington's an awful defense, worst defense in the league, scoring-wise. So, but that's what you wanted to see, one thing. Another thing you wanted to see, and you really – Mike McDaniel answered the short yardage issue on 3rd and 2 on the first series when he threw 78 yards to Tyreek Hill. That's one way to answer the short yardage issue, right? Take that out of the equation. But you would like to see at some point a little grit to go with the glitz, right? So because they're going to need that in the playoffs, you would think. And then the third thing is health. You look at guys falling across the league, Joe Burrow to Trevor Lawrence. You go down the list of Buffalo's defense. The Dolphins are pretty healthy. I know they lost Jalen Phillips and all, but comparatively, Baltimore lost their tight end, but they have another good tight end. So, a lot of times these come down to home field and health.
Right. And that Dallas has lost Diggs and Van Der Esch. And so, yeah, the list goes on and on and on. Real quick from the, look, Tervelis Tinkus, back, Tervelis Tinker, I'm sorry, back from the Bahamas.
Who thought your career would come down to mispronouncing Tervelis Tinker, Perk? But that's
I've got to stay focused like the Dolphins. I lost focus there. That's my problem there. But here's something from Judy Williams that is interesting. She writes, I'm not sure the Bengals and Chargers should be considered tough games at this point. I know what she means, and we had this discussion last week in the media room. We saw Cincinnati last night, and I know Joe Burrow is out, but they still have some good working parts. I do still consider the games against Cincinnati and the Chargers for all of the AFC teams that, when we look at quote unquote tough games, I have those two on the list. The Chargers, I know they have Brandon Staley as the coach, but they do have Justin Herbert. Are those tough games or respectable games? What do you think about those two opponents in the AFC right now?
Well, they're not contending games, if that's what you mean by tough. Neither of these teams are even close to winning. Cincinnati, the question is that quarterback, is that who he is? Was the backup quarterback for Cincinnati last night? He was great. He was great for them. Now, the problem with backups often is overexposure. He can do it 3 games or 4 games. But the other thing is a lot of this, when the Dolphins met the Chargers in game 1, they're a completely different team than they were now. Okay, they lost Mike Williams. Vic Fangio said our number one goal in the game was to take Mike out of the game. Okay, well, he went out 2 games later for the season with ACL. So, a lot of times it's when you meet these teams, where they're at, where you're at. And the Chargers aren't a contending team now. The Bengals aren't a contending team now, even though they won. So, I wouldn't say either team is in that tier of. To me, there's only 3 teams that can win the AFC right now, and I said them: Baltimore, Kansas City, and the Dolphins.
Yeah, you're right. I think that I think Cincinnati and the Chargers have to be respected, but they're not. The Chargers they're not.
6 points. I don't know which is worse. They won 6-0 in New England, or Bill Belichick going. I can't even believe I'm 2-10. Bill Belichick 2-10 and getting shut out at home. Oh my God! It's like a reversal of fortune. That movie, Eddie Murray. What was that? Trading Places.
Trading Places, right? That's it.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. after we get through these next 2 weeks, just where the Dolphins are health-wise and where the home field, right now they're the number one seed in the AFC. Can they hold that?
Yeah, that's the question. That is our big question here. So, all right. So, look, I was in the wrong chat. So now I'm in the right chat. Thanks to our producer, Sean Pitts. I was thinking that some of that stuff looked familiar. So now I'm in the right chat. So I will get the right questions up on here. Hyde, let's move over to our next segment, though. What would it take for Tyreek to win the MVP? This is going to be a short segment because I think it's going to take like every major quarterback to falter, right? From Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Tua, Dak Prescott. Everybody would have to go on a big season-ending slump, right? We know that Tyreek is on his way to 2,000 yards, first receiver to ever get to 2,000 yards. He right now is at 1,481. I think he's on pace to get like 2,090 yards. Absolutely electric last week with the 78-yard touchdown and the 60-yard touchdown. Can he win the MVP award, Dave Hyde?
What would it take? It would take the voters to realize you don't vote for the best quarterback on the starting quarterback on the best team. I mean, that's like a cookie cutter way to pick the MVP. Okay.
Right.
The guy who impacts the game the most every Sunday. And every Sunday, Tyreek Hill tilts the field in the Dolphins' favor. He is always, there's probably a couple games you could find he's not the best player on the field, but he scored a touchdown every game but two. He's gone over 150 yards 5 times, 146 another time. 2 touchdowns in 2 games over 60 yards. Including last Sunday. I mean, you go down the list, and if he gets something nobody else has done, 2,000 yards, again, is the bias so built in to give it to a quarterback that nobody else can get it? Because that's what has to change, is people have to understand what's going on down here.
Right, and that's what I don't like about our media counterparts, Dave Hyde, that I think that
Not us, Perk.
Not us. You know what? The Heisman got into this thing for a while where it went to the best quarterback or the quarterback of the best team, after you eliminated a couple of other factors. And that's kind of the era that we're in with the MVP, where you just say, all right, who are the best teams? And then you say, well, obviously they're one of the best teams because their quarterback played the best. So who are these groups of quarterbacks? And I think that we need to get out of this era of voting, that kind of mindset, because yes, Tyreek Hill impacts the game in ways that very few players can do it. Look, Aaron Donald had impacted the game in that way, but he's a defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman. It's a lot harder for him. We've seen guys who have impacted the game in various ways, but it's a lot harder for them to win the MVP award because they're not quarterbacks. Tyreek should break through. Tyreek is he's a transformational player when you play the Dolphins. You have to set your whole defense to stopping Tyreek Hill, or there's a pretty good chance that you're going to lose the game. So that's why Tyreek should be the MVP.
Perk, here's a mystery to me, and I went down from the press box on Sunday with this idea. How does he get behind the defense 4 yards almost every week?
Right.
Because the number one rule if you're playing the Dolphins would be don't let Tyreek Hill get deep on you, right? And Ron Rivera comes in the first series with a single safety. Who has to make a choice? Okay, do I help a linebacker? A linebacker on a chain who's put out wide. And the Dolphins, I was told, they knew, coming into the game, everybody knew, okay, we're going to get this look and we're going to go deep. And their third play of the game, it's a tribute to Mike McDaniel and his offensive staff to come up with that. It's a tribute to Tua to recognize what's going on with the defense and throw a good deep ball. And but Tyreek Hill's getting deeper, 4 yards deep he got on the third play of the game. And so it's mystifying to me how he keeps doing it week after week.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, it's just so hard to cover Tyreek. And now we can talk to recognize our people in the chat, Grandizer 12, Peter McDowell from Toronto, Matthew Blue, Judy Williams, of course, Patrick Vecchio, yes, Roger Allman, Cobb, California, what's up? Graybeard Productions, what's going on? Nuke 94 2001. Yeah, glad to see all of y'all in here. I got to get way caught up. Pretty Boy is back. Cat for Life in here. Yeah, Matthew Blue. So I'm sorry, I was in the wrong chat. So yeah, Judy says the MVP has become a QB award. The fact that Cooper Kupp barely got votes in 2021 shows that that the award is hopelessly biased. Let's see. How about this, Dave Hyde? Cat for Life. The NFL will change the motion rule because of the Miami Dolphins. I guarantee it. I don't think the NFL is going to change the tush push. We'll see. But what do you think the motion rule will be changed so that Tyreek doesn't get, or all of the Dolphins offense doesn't get such a big advantage?
No, I think it'll go the other way, where a lot of teams incorporate this, and you've seen some of them do it this year. But I think over the offseason, people realize what a great advantage it is. Canadian Football League is doing something, almost similar to this. But the fact that McDaniel brought it here to, we saw it in the first game because the question was, how are they going to combat what the Chargers did to them? Well, there you go. There's a very simple answer, right? And so, yeah, I think it'll be incorporated as a regular part of the offense, not outlawed.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Jack Thompson says of Tyreek, he's played versus very bad defenses. He didn't do anything versus the Chiefs, Bills, or Eagles. They have been feasting on sub 500 teams. I think he's talking about Tyreek. Tyreek did he did have a good game in there. Was it Kansas City? I have to look.
He had a good game, I believe.
Philly, yeah, it might have been Philly, but look,
but the question is, those defenses are built to stop him, which opens up everything else. I mean, you can't just say, look at his numbers. You have to look at what the defenses are doing and how, because Bill Belichick said, I'm going to take away the best player, just as Vic Fangio does. That's what smart, what you could say. I agree with the fact they're playing really dumb defenses. I mean, what Ron Rivera did on Sunday, that's malpractice. That was malpractice, asking a rookie cornerback from the start to go one-on-one with Tyreek Hill. I went into the locker room after the game to find the cornerback and talk to him, and it's almost embarrassing asking a guy the question. Basically, what you're asking is, you got roasted by Tyreek Hill. But all he said, look, he's a great player. So kudos to him for answering questions. But Ron Rivera, you see, Washington is a mess.
I'll tell you this though, Hyde, and by the way, against Philly, Tyreek had 11 receptions for 88 yards. But he did have that crucial drop, which could have been a touchdown. Against Kansas City, it was 8 for 62, and against Buffalo, it was 3 for 58. By the way, New England, in that first time that they played him, they held Tyreek to 5 for 40, and the Dolphins won 24-17.
He had a touchdown. Don't take that away from him, Perkins.
No. Look, I'm a Tyreek for MVP guy, so I'm giving him his flowers. I will say this, that New England also, they put Christian Gonzalez on Tyreek in the second half. They shadowed him with him in that first game where Tyreek was held to 40 yards. However, they also gave that unprecedented 3-safety Hyde look, that shell, to prevent Tyreek from going deep. So they used a combination of things which Ron Rivera did not do. So I agree with you. But yeah, I think Tyreek is basically screwed because of the mindset. He'll get Offensive Player of the Year, but the mindset of the voters is give it to a quarterback because the quarterback is the most important player on the field. Whatever. I'm not going to go into that. Hi, we're going to play a game here, and the game is called Tell Me I'm Wrong. So you tell me if I am wrong about these following statements, Dave Hyde. Here's the first one. Taron Armstead should sit out the next 2 games regardless of health. And the Dolphins play Tennessee and the New York Jets.
I think he should have sat out the last 4 games. I mean, you don't need him to win until Dallas. And what you think of it, they were asking him to play 10 straight games and every week he's questionable, in or out, in or out. Why not just sit him down, say, get healthy. We need you for Dallas for the next 7 games, maybe. I have to count up, but you don't need him to beat the Jets. You don't need him to shouldn't need him to beat Tennessee. You certainly didn't need him to beat Washington, which has the worst. They traded away the only 2 pass rushers a month ago. So get him healthy. He's very important to the offense against great pass rushing teams. That's when he makes any. But his body's it's held together with baling wire and band-aids, and so I would say, do an NBA maintenance program with him where you say we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Right, I agree 100%. And to Grandizer 12's question, what is the official status on Jerome Baker? We are meeting with the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel at 2 o'clock this afternoon, so we'll have an update for you later on this afternoon on Jerome Baker's status. So hopefully it's not bad. Hopefully Rob Hunt is not bad, and hopefully they keep Taron Armstead out for the next couple of weeks. Here we go, Dave. Tell me I'm wrong. The Dolphins aren't just the #1 seed in the AFC. They're the best team in the AFC.
Well, to me, if you're saying who's the best team right now, I say Baltimore. All right, they've beaten some decent teams. They're a power team. They've been a real good defensive team. But that could be a bias in that for years, Baltimore, until last year, which was, one of those epic collapses or epic miracles finished by Tua and the Dolphins. But until then, the Dolphins had been the whipping child of Baltimore. So, I think there's 3 teams, and I'm only letting Kansas City in there because of who they've been at the end of years, and they've shown they can take their game up a notch. But, I'm flipping a coin right now. If I had to pick who would go, I'd flip a coin between Baltimore and the Dolphins right now.
I'm staying with Kansas City, but I could buy your argument. I've just got to see how the Dolphins do in these last 3 games. That thing still sticks with me. Here's
a bit. That you'd like to look at their schedule and their win pile and say, okay, there's a good team they beat, and there's really not one.
Right. There's not. There's really not. And here's a question from the chat from Rob. It says the Titans much better at home than on the road. However, they look decent against a decent Colts team. Levis looked sharp, as did the run game. This game will be tougher than the record suggests. Dave, I thought the Jets game might be tougher because it was a road game. I thought Washington might be tougher because it's a road game. I can't be convinced that this game is going to be tougher, but the Dolphins handle sub-500 teams at home very well. I think this game is a butt kicking. What do you think?
Well, Tennessee has the chance to have a good game. On that any good given Sunday, they can be good, like against Indianapolis. But you look at what they've become the last month and a half, and it's not a good team. So I would think the Dolphins take them apart. And it's very strange what's going on with the schedule. A lot of these teams that I expected to be playoff teams or borderline playoff teams have fallen off. Obviously Jets for obvious reasons. Tennessee, Washington, a lot of people were picking them as a dark horse in the NFC to make some noise. So you go down the list of teams, and it's what looked like a really tough schedule in August really hasn't been that tough. And it showed because
I agree.
They lost the strength of schedule. They had a weaker schedule than Jacksonville, which was the tiebreaker between them before Jacksonville lost last night. And Jacksonville plays in what is, the AFC South was considered, that's a track division.
Yep. And now what? The North, I think, has 3 teams in it, right? because Pittsburgh and Cleveland are both in it right now, I believe. All right, Dave, tell me I'm wrong. Buffalo, which is currently 6-6, will have 8 losses and be out of playoff contention by the time they come to Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah, they very well could when you look at their schedule. What do they play? They play Philadelphia
at Kansas City this week, and they're versus Dallas next week. Then they're at the Chargers, and then versus New England. So it's really at Kansas City and versus Dallas, the next 2.
And that said, that's still a dangerous game for the Dolphins because Buffalo, even if their season's over, they're gonna not. They're gonna. Look, the Dolphins have a 3-game gauntlet, and I don't care what Buffalo's record's at the end of the year. That's going to be a tough game.
Yeah. Speaking of that, from the chat, Miami Kid Jay, Perkins and Hyde, how do you guys think the Dolphins will fare in the last 3 games of the season, the real barometer of the schedule? 1-2, my opinion, they should be able to beat Dallas. 1-2 would be a disappointment, Dave Hyde, especially considering 2 of those games are at home.
Well, I mean, we got to. I love. You want predictions now? Well, we got to get there to see. What if they lose another Jay Phillips and Jerome Baker? I mean, what if So, look, and you say 1-2 would be disappointing. What if they lose a game in overtime and they, what you want is 2-1 would be great, but 1-2, given the situation and everything, if they play them tough, if the defense, if you get some the type of game that would say, okay, you can carry that into the playoffs, I wouldn't be disappointed with that. What you'd be disappointed is if you lose the home field because you're 1-2.
Yeah. I'm looking at this pretty bottom line. I know there's going to be more injuries, but if the main guys stay healthy, Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Ramsey and X, I think that 1-2 would be a disappointment. Very few exceptions there. All right, Dave Hyde, tell me I'm wrong. The Dolphins will hold Tennessee running back Derrick Henry to fewer than 90 yards rushing.
Well, they might, because I read a report he might be in concussion protocol. I don't know where. We're going to have to wait to see where that is with Tennessee.
I saw yesterday that he is not in concussion protocol.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will they hold Derrick Henry to 90 yards? I would say yes, they will, because Vic Fangio is going to set up his defense to stop and tell a rookie, you beat my 2 corner, my 2 Pro Bowl, all very good cornerbacks, and if Javon Holland is back, all the more. So I don't think Derrick Henry will get 90 yards. No.
I agree with you. That's what if I'm Fangio, I'm selling out to stop Derrick Henry, and if you can even score on me otherwise, then my hat is off to you. But yeah, I'm loading up on Derrick Henry. Hi from the chat from Broward Bravado. How will the Ravens? Yeah, I know you got to like that, right? That's a new one. Church Boy Corey is in here for the first time that I recognize also. So I know we got to love these handles. So Broward Bravado, how will the Ravens score on this defense other than Lamar Jackson running for touchdowns?
Well, they have some receivers.
Zay Flowers.
Lamar Jackson's passing stats. I don't have them in front of me, but this isn't the Lamar of 3 years ago. Okay, he's become more accurate. The new offensive coordinator, new passing game. So don't go into this with the stereotype or the question of, okay, this is who Lamar Jackson is because I've watched him for a few years. He's having an MVP style year. If they gave it to him, I really couldn't argue too hard. Right. I think Tyreek Hill should at this moment, but Lamar Jackson's having a great year.
Yeah, and Zay Flowers is there. OBJ is there. Look, they're not a team that will win a 36-34 shootout, but I think that they can do what it takes to win. That's what I would say. I don't look for them to score a lot of points, but they can win like a 21-18 game, 24-21. By the way, Church Boy Corey says until we beat good teams, I'll believe we're contenders, and I think he's saying that's when I'll believe we're contenders. But
that's your line of thought, right, Perk? That's follows with you. I mean, that's a legitimate narrative to take if you want to go that route. Absolutely.
Yep. Here's an interesting one from Troy. I understand protecting Armstead by not practicing. However, could his lack of game conditioning be contributing to his injury history? I don't think so. I think that he's just old, and that's with all due respect to Taron. He's a Pro Bowler. I don't mean that in a bad way. He's got a lot of games on him. He's in his 11th season, I believe, and he's at a point where you look at Tua, and his injury situation has improved because of off-season work and because of youth. Taron's is not going to improve at all. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, and look, when you signed him, you knew this. Right. He has an injury history. He's getting older. Players generally don't get healthier in the NFL when they get older. And so how do you best use his talent at this point or conserve his talents for the stretch run you need him? I would have sat him out. I get he wants to play and all that stuff, but I would certainly err on the wide side of caution on this issue.
Here's a little fly in the ointment, Hyde. What if the backup, Kendall Lamb, is?
I'm guessing that played into last week. Kendall Lamb had a back issue, but he dressed. Yep. Sort of like Robert Hunt the previous week. Right. He dressed, right. And then they decided not to use him, and they threw in Keon Smith, right? And
right.
So, maybe all this is all in the decision they're coming up with, but the bottom line is I would rest Taron Armstead.
I agree. All right, Hyde, real quick, we'll wrap this up. Tell me I'm wrong. Considering the quarterbacks Miami faces in this 5-game stretch that ends with the Jets, this year's 5-game win streak, which we think they'll go on, is going to be similar to last year's 5-game win streak. They didn't play any winning teams last year. These 5 quarterbacks, Aiden O'Connell of the Raiders, Tim Boyle of the Jets, Sam Howell of Washington, Will Levis of Tennessee, and then they hit Boyle again with the Jets. That's the 5 quarterbacks. The significance of this 5-game win streak, Hyde?
The significance is in the NFL, you're asked to pile up wins against bad teams. And they haven't had that. I thought they'd have a clunker somewhere along the line against one of these bad teams because that's just the nature of the NFL, and they haven't so far. So for that, you give them credit. But you're right. Don't give them too much credit. Don't overpraise them for doing the expected. I get that. My only thing is I'm seeing things from the defense coming together, right. And the offense finding gears that you'd like to see against good defenses, but they have that gear. But yeah, it's like last year. Brian Flores one year went 7 straight to end the year, I believe, and they didn't play a starting quarterback the whole way. And everybody said, "Oh, they're back. They're back." No, But so I get it. They haven't played a good team, a good quarterback, and so you're allowed to reserve judgment to some degree until that 3-game stretch at the end.
Jason Stavros from the chat. I had a dream. Miami wins out to arrest the last game of the season because we have it all locked up. Is that a dream or is that reality, Dave Hyde? I think it's a dream because of the AFC, not because of the Dolphins, but because of this is going to be tight all the way through. That Buffalo game is going to matter.
Well, I stopped at I Have a Dream because in Washington, I walked the mall and I went to the Lincoln Memorial, and the 2 biggest events that ever happened there, of course, for the Martin Luther King I Had a Dream speech and Forrest Gump calling out for Jenny out in the So, okay, I have a dream. The idea was they'd be able to clinch home field before the end of the year. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
I don't see that just from. Then again, I didn't see Kansas City losing and Jacksonville losing Sunday and Monday night. So a lot of this is if they win the next two games, they're going to be in good shape. Certainly, I think it'll come down to the January 1st game in Baltimore. I mean, that's just what the schedule's pointing to.
Dave Hyde, tell me I'm wrong. Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator, was genuinely, truly touched to be mentioned in association with the Carolina Panthers coaching rumor.
He was. He teared up, and my fellow Miami of Ohio graduate, a lot. We're so hardened on sometimes about this guy's rumored, but these are real people. He's got a career ambitions. He's probably never been mentioned or in the rumor, in the mix or discussion for a head coach. I don't know. I'm just guessing. And so we've all been there in our careers where all of a sudden a little elevation, we're getting a little confirmation. That's how I love to see real, genuine emotion from players or coaches.
Me too. I thought I was moved, and it's not often that you see moving things from grown men in that position because they're usually kind of jaded. They've seen it all, and to see that kind of emotion from Frank Smith was genuinely touching. It was one of those things that you just don't see very often. So it's always good when you see that kind of true emotion in a game that sometimes asks you to be a robot. That's the good thing about Mike McDaniel, right? He's a true person, and he allows his players to be true people also.
It let you to see. I mean, and I'm so used to the other way. Flores, you couldn't have two completely coaches in a lot of respects than Flores and Mike McDaniel as far as how they carry themselves. And Mike McDaniel allows himself to be human. And I assume, I mean, that's his way, a fun way, obviously, but also a genuinely human way. And that carries over to like that event with Frank Smith where he teared up. But question.
Right. Yep. All right, Hyde. Here's segment 3, and it's about the defense. And what do you like most about this Dolphins defense? And there's a lot of things to choose from, right? We've seen the playmaking, whether it's been Andrew Van Ginkel recently, or Javon Holland, or Jalen Ramsey. We've seen the sacks. Both Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer have career highs in sacks. We've seen the depth where they made up for the loss of Jalen Phillips and Javon Holland and Jalen Ramsey. They're good at all three levels, and the most suspect level would be the linebackers. But David Long is on his way to a 100 tackle season. We know what the secondary can do. We know what the defensive line can do. Fangio's game plans. What do you like most about this defense, Dave? There's a lot to choose among.
Well, I mean, you mentioned this isn't my answer, but the linebackers, their speed at linebacker, which Jerome Baker allowed them to do a lot of things. So they're going to miss Jerome Baker. He's a guy you could, for the past 6 years, he was an Iron Man. He'd missed one game in 6 years. So, but what I like about it is they've become a big play, as you mentioned, a takeaway defense where once or twice or sometimes 3 times a game, they will make a game-changing play. Now, this run against bad offenses helps them do that. But Jalen Ramsey showing he can make big plays. Now, you got other guys. Van Ginkel on Sunday made big play. We know a guy like Xavier Howard can, and Javon Holland. So that is something that separates a good defense from a great defense, or a top 10 defense from a top 5 defense. Is one that can be used as a weapon to change a game, not just to stop the other team from scoring points.
Yeah, and look, what I really like about this defense, like you say, the versatility. They've shown they can stop the run. They can shut you down against the pass. The one thing that they have not done is gone on the road and won the game against that quality team. However, Mike McDaniel gives them credit for being on the field last with that Chargers game in the opener. I'd still give the Dolphins credit for winning that game. That was a tough road game. That was the opener. We didn't know what the Chargers were going to be at that time. So I give the defense credit for doing that. The defense held the Chiefs to 21 points, right?
14 points because Tyreek Hill fumbled, was returned for a touchdown. So
you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So, this defense has done it in a lot of different ways. And if I can go to the offensive side of the ball very quickly, the one thing that probably has me most excited about this offense is that they're running the ball now. And I think in the last 2 games, it was 37 rushing attempts and 34 rushing attempts. That final drive of the last game, that 13-play drive, 12 of those were runs. So you want to see that versatility. Going back to the defense, you have that versatility, or at least it's developing on the defense, where you can win with the defensive line, you can win with the secondary, you can win with sacks, you can win with turnovers, you can win with just a workman-like defensive performance, you can win with game plan. I see a lot of potential for this defense, and that's one of the things that I like about it most. Showing you different sides, different facets, different things that it can do. Terry McLaurin, the Washington receiver, Dave, you talk about Ron Rivera having a losing game plan. I guess McLaurin just got absolutely shut down because he had 0 receptions and just 3 targets. Now, you give like 90% of the credit to the players, right? To Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard. I don't know how often McLaurin was in the slot and lined up against Cater. But again, you see another way that this defense can win.
Well, I don't know 90% because, Vic Fangio gets a lot of credit to me. One thing we've seen as the season progresses is, as opposed to, again, 20 years of whatever you want to call the Dolphin franchise, this is a very well-coached team. We've seen it on offense. And Sunday showed it, 2 plays, that 3rd and 2 on offense, where they motion a Chan out wide, a linebacker goes with him, the safety shades that way. That gives Tyreek Hill one-on-one, okay? And the Dolphins have seen that on film. Then you go to the defense. Vic Fangio had told Andrew Van Ginkel, whenever and I haven't looked at the film to see what the tackle did, but whenever the tackle for Washington made a certain move, that's going to be a wide receiver screen. So Van Ginkel said, sure enough, guy made whatever the movie made, and I knew a screen was coming. I went up and he, and it was right in my hands. I couldn't believe it. So this is a very well-coached team, and all the people who wondered about Vic Fangio in September, I think you're seeing why 11 other teams copy the defense or try to copy the defense that he runs, and the Dolphins have the original, and that's a big component as we go into December and January.
Right. I agree. Look, the chat line, man, this thing is really popping. I mean, great to see all these first timers, but we have an all-time text right here. This one, hang on. Oh my goodness. Don't hang on, stream.
Oh my God. Right. I'm excited. What's going on there?
I know it. Here we go. This is from Time Served. Says, great stream, e-reader from New Jersey. I will be at the Dallas game on Christmas Eve. The event staff is taking me onto the field with my girlfriend, and I am proposing on the field. Hope she says yes. Oh, hell, great job, guys. So Time Served, dude, hopefully.
One of the stories I actually tried to do, and because all these proposals go on the scoreboards, was 10 years later, what's the divorce rate of people who propose at a wedding, at a game? What do you think? Is it higher or lower than the national average? I think it. I mean, if my wife proposed to me at a game, I don't know what I'd say. No, we're not doing it. But God bless you for doing it.
I don't know if the marriages last longer, but hopefully the acceptance rate is a lot higher, right?
No, I think it lasts longer because, as with I can't remember his name, they have something in common that there's a bond there. Okay, our date night will be to a game, so that's perfect.
There we go. Let me answer this from Veneer Ulysses. Why is this crap that Miami has not beat a good team crap in the air? The 2012 Rams beat one team over 500 and won the Super Bowl. I'll address this because I've addressed this plenty of times. That you're right. That Rams team did not beat very many 500 teams, but they scored. I believe they scored over 30 points. They were only held to fewer than 30, like 4 times and then I think they played 17 games or something like that. So that was a team that was unique. From the standpoint, it put incredible pressure on you every week. You had to score more than 30 to beat that team. That hasn't necessarily been the case with these Dolphins. And so that team is unique. But look, I hear what you're saying. And again, like I say the same thing about Dallas, that I've got to see you beat a good team. I consider the Dolphins Super Bowl contenders, but in my second tier. Hyde, what any comparisons to that Rams team?
Well, I mean, the fact if you had to go back to 2012 to find a team like this, it tells you kind of answers why it's an issue. I mean, you had to find one in 10 years. But the other thing is, I will say, to me, it reinforces home field more than as much as good team, bad team records for the Dolphins, in that they lost at Buffalo. They lost at Philadelphia. They lost in Germany against Kansas City. And so to me, you know, does all this team travel as well? They play well in Hard Rock Stadium, and you want the game here. Okay. You want the playoff games here. So to me, as much as the home field is or the beating a good team is an issue, getting the home field is an issue too.
Yep. And El Hibaro, this is an answer to somebody asked why the media is always focusing on the negative, and I lost it.
If you take that one, they're talking about you.
that is addressed to me, isn't it? And El Hibaro says once we win the overrated Dallas game, the media will have no option to admit the progress that we see all the time. So, look, again, I don't.
You are a bad man, Perk.
I'll take that. That is directed toward me. I think that I'm more a realist than somebody who brings a lot of negativity, but I'll take it. I'll take it. I understand where that is coming from. I'll take it. Again, I've said I think that these Dolphins will win a playoff game. I'm trying to dig my way out of this. You see?
Here's how I've heard that question for the past quarter century with the Dolphins.
Right.
Okay? All right? I mean, and so things are different now to me. You know, the way they're coached, the way the talent level, they got a window here to compete for Super Bowls. But for 23 years, I heard, why are you so negative? They're so negative because there's nothing there. And now it turned real quickly on a dime here to me.
Right. And look, Hank Capon from the chat, I watched Zonka and Warfield with my dad. I've seen a lot of Dolphins teams. This team is special on a number of levels. This is special. I hope you're right, but I think you're right, and I hope you're right. How's that?
Did you mean when he said that he's watching the games with his dad and Zonka and Warfield now, or he watched them in the 70s? I want to do that story. That's a great story.
That's right. We'd all like to turn back the hands of time or live in fantasy world, whichever, right? Either is good. Either is good. All right, Hyde, it is prediction time, baby. Dolphins and Titans. Who you got?
I got the Dolphins, and I'm trying to remember what I picked it in the paper. I think 31-14. So I'll go with that. I mean, this is the best of this 5-team Motley Crue schedule, the stretch where they should pile up wins. But Vic Fangio against a rookie quarterback at home, you know, and Tennessee's season is slipped off the shelf from what everybody expected it to be.
Yeah, I'm going Dolphins 38-14. I was saying earlier, it's tough to know what these margins are going to be, or for me anyway, because I thought the Jets game was going to be close. It was a road game. I thought the Washington game was going to be close. It was a road game. Neither were close. So I'm thinking that this is going to be a comfortable margin, 38-14. The Dolphins handle sub 500 teams at home pretty well. I know that Vegas game was 20-13, but I have confidence that they'll come out fired up. And again, this team stays focused. It doesn't have very many scares against subpar teams, and so I think that they stay focused here. And so I'm going to go 38-14 with this one. Call of Duty 1, with the Finns winning games in the cold and rain, do they need to have home field advantage? I think that they need to have home field advantage. I don't think it's necessarily a weather thing. I think it's more of a comfort thing. They haven't had many games in the cold and inclement weather in the last, under Mike McDaniel, of course, the 2 Buffalo games last year. But I think that's pretty much been it. So I don't know that cold, it rained a little in Germany, I guess, or before the game. But I don't know that cold weather with this particular team has been a factor.
I think in Dolphins history, you look, they're 12-3 in the playoffs at home and something like 5-16 on the road. Now, when you play on the road, you're not the favored team, so that might. But the disparity between the two says historically, whether it's because of weather, style of play, or whatever, Dolphins need a home field advantage to go far in the playoffs.
Yep. We'll finish on this one from Roger Allman. Wes Welker said Tyreek is better than Randy Moss. Do you believe that? This was also a topic in the media room. I'm on the side that Tyreek is. I think Tyreek is harder to defend. Better, that's tough to say, but I think Tyreek is harder to defend, and that makes him more effective from all parts of the field.
You know what I'm surprised most about Tyreek? A lot of times the line is the further you get away from the center, the more diva a player is. Okay. And I like to cover divas because they're kind of fascinating personalities. But how well Tua and Tyreek get not only on the same page on the field, but talking off the field. And Tyreek, and I used this anecdote. I remember his first summer here. I was watching a practice and I was leaving it, and there was Rick Spielman, the former Dolphins GM, Vikings GM. I asked him what he thought, and he goes, "Man, Tyreek Hill." And what he was saying is not only, and here's this practice in August, he's working like crazy. Okay. And so I'm surprised by his work ethic, and I'm surprised by how well he gets along with other teammates. And if you were to say, okay, what's the difference between him and Randy Moss? Did Randy Moss get along with he didn't get along with franchises. And was he a good teammate? He was a good teammate. He scored a lot of touchdowns. But there's something, and look, we're in year 2 with Tyreek. Maybe it happens in year 4, but so far he's been a great teammate, and his work ethic spreads across the team.
Right. And I you know what? And to the teammate thing, and I think I told you this before, Hyde, I was talking to a player in the locker room, and when I did that column about this team now belongs to Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill, and this player said to me, you know what I love about Tyreek? He's just one of the guys. He said, I was on a team with a diva wide receiver, and he didn't hang out with us at all. He was off on his own, and he said, I like and respect that Tyreek is one of the guys. And so, yeah, that goes to what you say about practice and being a good teammate. Those two things, we cannot discount those. All right, Hyde, that's it for this edition of Dolphins Deep Dive. I appreciate it. Everybody watch Hard Knocks tonight. Not that I'm getting a cut of the money, but no, I don't know why I advertised that. Somebody said it on the chat. I figured that's a good idea. Hard Knocks tonight. We will join you again next week, sunsentinel.com, noon on Tuesday.